Good morning guys, and welcome to the first foraging nature-based video I've done in ages. For those that followed along, you'll know that I went for a breakup and I've been building a new van, which took a lot longer than expected. I honestly can't wait to show you the van, but today I have to get stuck into nature. I need to get outside, I need to do some foraging. I've actually got, I don't know if you can tell the swelling I've got here. I've got a wisdom tooth coming in all wrong. They're booking me in for surgical extraction, which will be a load of fun, I can imagine. So it's early spring, it's like the 13th of April I think today, and I'm just going to get out and I'm going to see what I can find. If I can find anything that's going to help my tooth, then absolutely fantastic, but I do know that most of the painkillers are in a lot of flowers and plants that come out during the summer, but we definitely have some medicinal plants that we can be looking for, and even some mushrooms. I'm just going to try jog my memory a bit on some stuff that I find. If this is the first time you've come to my channel or the first time you've watched one of my foraging videos, basically I started foraging about 3 years ago. Completely self-taught, but some people find that really useful because some foraging videos are completely overwhelming, whereas I speak in plain English, so it makes it a little bit easier to understand. I'll show you around this woodland. It's awesome, it's completely draped in moss, which is beautiful, and I think I might have already spied our first medicinal plant, or should I say mushroom. This is some sort of, what is this, squirrel trap? I mean, it's obviously broken. Not sure what this is, if anyone can tell me. There's 2 nails on the tree, so obviously it used to sit like that. But it has fallen down, so I'll leave it as I found it. Curious as to what that's about. So as you can imagine, in the woods we're going to find quite a lot of mosses. And I found the first interesting one. It's known as haircap moss. And you'll see it as these tiny little, they almost look like little pine trees. They're typically really easy to find because they stand taller than a lot of the other mosses. Now in terms of uses and health benefits, not a whole lot, but it is supposedly good for relieving kidney stones if you make it into a tea. It was also often added to shampoos to strengthen hair, but I don't know if there's any scientific backing on that. But you can certainly make it into a tea to relieve kidney stones. What we're going to do now is show you this mushroom. It's very exciting, and if you've followed my channel, you will know it, but I get a lot of people still asking questions about it, about IDing it, so I'm very excited to show you it and talk about it a little bit. So this beauty next to me is in fact the turkey tail mushroom, and is the most researched mushroom on the planet. It's been used in Chinese medicine for thousands of years and is still very commonly used. Definitely one of the most medicinal mushrooms you can find in the UK. It's also common, it's also really easy to ID, so it's worth learning this mushroom. So let's talk through exactly how you identify this mushroom, what it can do and how you can use it. I'm not going to use big fancy technical words. I do know some, but I've had a lot of feedback and a lot of people have said that they really enjoy that I explain it in a way that they can understand. I'm not here to boggle you with jargon, I'm here to make it easy to identify the mushrooms and plants around you so that you can safely forage and consume them yourself. So first things first, it's a bracket fungus, which means it grows in brackets. Very simple to understand. You get flat platelets. Some bracket fungus can be quite thick and bulbous, but they're growing like shelves on a tree. The turkey tail will always grow in relatively large numbers. You'll never just find one. If you do, it's very bizarre that you have, or someone's already come and foraged them all and missed one. They grow on dead and dying wood, so in this instance this tree is completely dead, but this mushroom was probably already growing on this before the tree actually even fell. In fact, I don't know if you can see in the camera right there, there's a wee bit more, but if you notice, that's grown horizontally, which means that that mushroom there started growing once the tree had already fallen, because it will always grow perpendicular to the direction that the tree grows. So as with many mushrooms, turkey tails have lookalikes. Now the easiest way to identify that this is a true turkey tail is if we pick one of these. So as you can see, you've got this banding of colour. That's what gives it the name turkey tail. They do come in a massive variety of colours. So this one's kind of brown, tan, but you can get blue, you can get green, you can get grey. In fact, the second part of the Latin name is versicolor, which obviously means versatile colour, many colours. So that banding is very important to pay attention to. You also get a white rim on the end. Now, one of the most important identifiers of this mushroom is in fact on its underside. It must be white and it must have a pore surface. Notice all those tiny little holes? That's essential in IDing this mushroom. So if you've turned over what you thought was a turkey tail and it has gills, you definitely don't have a turkey tail. If you have a flat surface that doesn't have these little holes, you don't have a turkey tail. And of course the colour, it needs to be white or cream. If you turn it over and it's any other colour than that, it's not a turkey tail. I am absolutely confident that what I have here is a turkey tail. So we'll quickly run over those identifying factors again. It's a bracket fungus. It grows like little shelves on a tree. It'll grow in large numbers on dead or dying wood. It'll have a white or cream underside with tiny little pore holes. It has banded colours on it. The important thing is to pay attention to the banding, not so much the colour, because like I said, I've literally seen these in blue and green. They look like something you would never consider eating. And that's it. That's how you identify the turkey tail. And I know for a fact what we have here is some beautiful, tender and soft turkey tail. You can find them all year round. Sometimes I've found specimens in the winter that have been perfectly fine to harvest. So I'm actually out of turkey tail, which is brilliant because it means I can top up my supplies. So I'm going to gather a good bunch of this fungus to take home and to dry. Quite simply, I'm going to use it in teas. I will say right here though that even though this is a common mushroom and it's abundant, I'm only going to take a fifth of what's there. That's the foraging rule I run by. Everyone has their own. Some people say never take more than a quarter. I tend to take around a fifth. Because this is a common mushroom, I've no problem taking a fifth. Some other mushrooms, I wouldn't pick at all. I would completely just leave them as they are because they're better just being beautiful and spreading and continuing to grow throughout the forest. But as I say, I have no problem collecting these and I'm actually quite excited too. So when you're foraging, it always pays to take just a little bit extra time when you actually forage. So you'll notice when I've picked that, there's quite a bit of dirt and even a little bit of the tree on this edge here. So all I'm going to do is take my knife and cut that little sliver off just so that it's a bit cleaner. And then when I get back, I've got a lot less to do. Because what will happen is once it's in the bag, of course, all the dirt is just going to start falling off and then it's going to get in the pores and all over the place. See, for example, I mean, look at that. So you want to trim that off. You want to get them pretty clean. You don't want to spend all day here cleaning them up. You're going to have to do it when you get back, but it's worth giving them a wee scrub up. So of course, in the first batch that I harvested, I was peeling it off the tree and then I was cutting the excess off. If you're not as comfortable using a blade, then your easiest bet is actually to cut it from the tree like this. To be fair, it probably is just a little bit cleaner doing it that way. That's done a really nice job. But if you're alright handling a blade, then you can just trim them up in your hands, no problem at all. So there we go, little bag of turkey tail. Not a massive amount, but I suspect we're going to find more. I reckon that'll do me nicely. You've got stagnum moss down here. Notice it's sort of star shaped, little star trees. Looks a little bit like the other one I showed you earlier, but it's not. It's not as tall, it's much softer, grows in very wet terrain. But you'll notice it looks very kind of fluffy and soft. I don't know, it sort of looks like star shaped. Anyway, this moss is fascinating because it is actually antiseptic and antibacterial. So in order to tell you about why that's so interesting, I've got to take you back to World War I. Okay, so I'm not actually going to take you back to World War I, no one wants to go there. There's something interesting about sphagnum moss. Sorry, I think I called it stagnum moss earlier. I think it's because you kind of think of stagnant, but no, sphagnum. During World War I, cotton was kind of hard to come by because they were making so many uniforms for soldiers. It was also used in munitions and of course bandages. Well, when they ran out of bandages, they tried all sorts of different things to varying degrees of success. But one Scottish scientist and medic said, let's stuff the wounds with moss. Sphagnum moss is antiseptic and antibacterial. So if you actually cut yourself, injure yourself in the woods, and you can find sphagnum moss and you haven't got a bandage, it's a fantastic thing to hold against and press against your wound until you can get to medical care. If you do have to do that, make sure and lift just the tops of the moss. You don't want to be bringing the soil with it because of course there could be any number of microbes in that, but the moss itself will actually help protect your wound. Now, I don't know if I'm completely hiding it with my hat, but did you spot it? More turkey tail. So I'm going to forage a load of that, and I'm also going to forage some of this bark. There's stuff everywhere. I love the woods. So birch bark has many uses. One of them is actually for crafting stuff. So you can actually make little cups. It holds water really well. So you can take a sliver of bark, say this thick, all the way... Where are you going? You can take a sliver of bark that thick all the way around and then stitch it on one side and then seal it with pitch pine, put a bottom on it, and you've got some sort of vessel that you can carry water in. But the reason I like this bark so much is because I have a log burner and it's great for starting fires. So let's forage some and we can talk about it later on. So there I've got some nice thin sheets of birch bark. I've seen people do this to living trees. Please do not. Exposes the tree to infection. Get it from dead fallen trees like this. And if you can't find them, we'll just wait. Wait until you can. But I can show you now why I've collected this. So we're going to go a bit further along to a little bit that you know I've not tampered in any way. So over here, so it's worth pointing out that this tree is actually wet. It's completely soaked to the touch. But the reason this tree is so useful is because its bark is so full of resin that it's flammable even when it's slightly wet. Look at that. So that's exactly why I'm taking a little bundle back with me, because it's basically free fire lighters. The forest just keeps on giving. So when I saw that first batch of turkey tail, I thought that might be it, that might be all the forest has to offer today. Because quite frankly, early spring, there's not a lot going on. We're better looking for young leaves along verges and stuff, which is where we're going to be heading if I can get out of this forest without finding interesting stuff. It's not something new, but just leaving that birch bark spot and I have found the motherload. It's almost ridiculous. I told you it was coming, and I told you in taking only a fifth, it didn't really matter, because soon enough, I'd be finding more. Just because you found turkey tail recently doesn't mean you should make the assumption that it is turkey tail. It's grown on birch, hardwood, that's a good sign. It's grown in brackets, again, all these little shelves. It's got that typical turkey tail pattern with the banding of colours, and on the underside, we've got white and we've got pores. So as they say, when in Rome. Not going to grab any of the lower ones, they look a bit sketchy. The younger the better, really. Right, I'm going to stop there. I've got a reasonable bag full. There's still absolutely loads. I'm not following my 1/5 rule here. I'm purely stopping because that's all I need. And that's another rule to follow. Don't take more than you need. There's no point. Okay? That's as much as I can dry and process without losing a load to rot, because I've only got so much time and space to dry them. So yeah, that's what I'm going to take home to my van. Just going to stuff it in my side pocket here with my birch bark. And we're going to carry on. I think what we're going to do now is get out of the woodland, because you know I wasn't expecting to find much in there. It was worth talking about some of the mosses we found there, but turkey tail seemed to be the big winner. You can also find chaga, because we're in amongst birch trees. Chaga is a ridiculously medicinal mushroom, and if I found that I would be absolutely over the moon, but I don't expect to find any. I've never found any in these woods before. I'll tell you what, I was hopeful there. There's a bit up there that looked a lot like chaga, but no bueno. So we're going to jump down onto the road and we're going to go try find field or grasslands, verges, because we're looking for greens now. By the way, never pass up the opportunity to smell the end of a cut log. I do love spruce. I found a big redwood recently. They've been cut down and it just smells incredible. Anyway, this video is already going to be about 75 hours long, so I will cut to when we find some greenery. You might recognise this bush. If you're mistaken them for berries, then you might not. These are not berries. These are in fact flowers. This is a bilberry bush, or a wild blueberry bush. At this time of year, yep, it's flowering, and you've got these brand new leaves, which make a fantastic tea. So, not only do the flowers make a cheeky wee snack, crunchy, a little bit sweet, very much like pea pods. To be fair, there's not an awful lot of leaves here. I know that up in that wood there are tons of bilberries, and I could go on a venture to make bilberry leaf tea. You can also just eat the leaves, but it's not very high on my priority list, so I'm going to continue on. And when I said I'm looking for greenery, I don't mean green, there's green stuff bloody everywhere. I mean grasslands, fields, meadows, anything like that. The rain is picking up, so I'm actually running for the woods again, because they do offer some level of shelter. Also, wild garlic quite often likes the edge of streams. It's unlikely I'm going to find any in here because of the spruce trees and the needles they drop. They make it hard for a lot of stuff to grow. Absolutely love this section of the woodland. Just the fact that everything is just draped with moss. I mean, it is absolutely covered. You can imagine getting turned around quite easily? Luckily, I know there's wood inside and out, but it does snake around as people have wandered around and got lost probably, gobbled up by trolls. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff I might find is going to be on the roadside, which means I won't be harvesting it because of pollution that it would have absorbed from the cars passing by its entire life, but it will give me the opportunity to talk about it perhaps. Right, I've literally just hit stop and I've had to hit record again because there's a plant here that I need to tell you guys about, and it's bloody important, especially if you're out looking for your wild garlic. Let me show you. So it's this big leaf here. I shouldn't actually even be touching this plant because of its toxicity. Not because it's highly poisonous, but rather that it's actually got crystals in it that can shred you up. So they'll irritate your hands, and if you digest that plant, it will wreck you from the inside out. It's an absolute leave the fuck alone kind of plant. So you're probably looking at that and thinking, mate, I'm not going to pick that. That doesn't look like wild garlic. You're an idiot. Yes, you're not going to pick that leaf, but let me show you some of its younger leaves. What about that? Could you mistake that for wild garlic? I reckon you could, quite easily. The only reason it's very obviously not wild garlic is because it's grown in amongst the rest of these bigger leaves, which have these massive lobes on them, which is the dead giveaway. Now, this plant is called Lords and Ladies. In fact, it has lots of names, but we're going to just stick with Lords and Ladies. During the summer, initially they grow this really elaborate leaf, and then later on in the year you'll get this rod with these red berries on them, and you'll probably recognize them. But the point I'm trying to make here, and again I shouldn't even touch this, so picking it's just stupid, but the point I'm trying to make is that looks like a wild garlic leaf to the untrained eye, but notice it has tiny little lobes. That is the giveaway. Now I'm hoping later in this video that we're going to find some wild garlic and I'll be able to show you the comparison. But it is why I tell people to be cautious with wild garlic, because for a lot of folk, wild garlic is the first thing they start to forage. And if you imagine you think you're confident in wild garlic and you see these, you might just go ahead and pick them. And I tell you, this will mess you up. Your mouth is going to burn like bugger, and if you've already swallowed it, then it's going to shred your kidneys, your liver, everything it touches with these micro crystals. So we'll take this leaf with us, but as I say, the important thing is to look at those lobes, but hopefully we can find some wild garlic and I can do a direct comparison for you. Oh yeah, getting some D. It's been a while since I've seen the sun. Unfortunately I have to walk into the shadows. Edible! Dandelion! I'm sure if you followed my videos, you'll know that dandelions are edible now. The whole plant. The leaves, the stem, the flower, the root. But again, this is right next to the road. Won't be touching it. Let's keep firing on, see what we can find. If I know my leaf shape and colour, that's wild garlic. It is. Okay, so I picked a little bit of that wild garlic. But as you will have noticed, it was right next to the road. So I'm not interested in eating that. But here we have the toxic Lords and Ladies leaf. Here we have the wild garlic leaf. Side by side, it's easy enough to be like, yeah, I can see the differences. Notice how you can see the veins in this leaf here, whereas the wild garlic has really just one main central one. But to the untrained eye, you could make the mistake. Notice on the wild garlic it's smooth, it's spear shaped, completely spear shaped. Whereas on the Lords and Ladies plant, we've got these little lobes. It doesn't go straight to the stem. You really got to give it to nature for just how hardy it is. Look at this tree, completely fell. He or she is not giving up. All over it, all this new growth. And that'll be simply because some of the roots still go down, connected into the ground. Even though a lot of them have been pulled up and out of the ground, it's still able to source nutrients. So why not throw up more branches? Start all over again as a horizontal babe. Don't know how I managed to keep my feet dry. Listen to this sound. Luckily there's enough branches and moss to actually make a platform for me there, because there is a big pool of water under there. Cleaver, sticky willy, sticky willow. Most of you will know it. Sticks to you close, so as kids we all used to throw each other. Get a big bundle of it, toss it onto the back of your mate, he goes home and his mum's like, what the hell is that on your back? And the sticky little balls that come off of them, which interestingly enough you can make coffee with later in the year. It's actually packed full of vitamins, this little number, but the hairs on it make it pretty unappealing. So The best way to process this or to consume it or gain something from it is to actually pick a bundle of it, crush it up, put it in a bottle with water, and then leave it overnight in your fridge. In the morning, simply strain the water and have a vitamin drink. It is away from the road, thankfully, but there's not quite enough, so I'm just going to leave it be. If I find a nice big patch with some taller bits, then maybe I'll take some home. I've been teased and teased and teased with wild garlic in the side of the road, but I just hit the fucking mother load. Look at this. Oh yes. I'm sure many of you will know wild garlic, but if you don't, it's a plant that grows in spear-shaped leaves. Notice there's no lobe whatsoever at the bottom there. So as you can see, the leaves grow individually out of the ground like that. If you dig in amongst the larger leaves, you'll quite often find, depends on the time of year of course, there we go, you'll quite often find the buds. So this is what's going to turn into the flowers. You can see all the little individual flower heads. These are good eating too. Chop them up, chuck them in your salad. Really the poisonous lookalike for this plant I've already showed you. But a couple ID features that you want to pay attention to, as well as the shape, is it has very long stems. That one actually looks like it's got lobes, but it's been eaten by something. Something's had a wee chew on that. So not only is it spear shaped, long leaves, but it has a long white stem. It has one very prominent vein running down the middle. The leaf itself is very waxy and matte. This one is shiny because it's wet. Just pick one, you crunch it up, stick under your nose, and it stinks of garlic. It's like a spring onion garlic mix. Now, I've come over that fence, found this massive patch, and of course the stupid thing to do would be to pick any along this edge here, because dogs are going to piss against these posts and they're going to piss here. Whereas on the other side, which is a house, presuming they don't have a dog, I'll still be washing my leaves anyway, but the best place to pick is going to be reaching out over there. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick a nice handful, fill a little bag, and add that to the list of things that we found today. But look, little patch of wild garlic. Lovely, beautiful. Lords and ladies, right there. Poisonous, bad news. You can see how that could actually just grow in amongst that. That's why I tell people, when you pick wild garlic, never grab by handfuls. Always pick leaf at a time. Look at that leaf, be sure that you've just picked wild garlic leaf, because that plant will mess you up. You need to not pick that at the same time. And honestly, I have found them growing in amongst each other. You have to be really cautious. Tell you what, that's a bloody tree. Absolutely massive. I mean, I don't know how to give you a sense of scale on this thing. It's huge. Bizarre bark as well. Really crumbly on that redwood. I think you can make tinder with that quite easily. But I'm not all that interested because I have my birch bark, which will do me just fine. So I'm a little bit miffed actually, because I bought myself a little pocket-sized book on trees, and I've got this great big redwood. I don't know anything about it, but I have just found these. So what I'm going to do is actually take that home with me, and using the video footage, I should be able to ID that tree up my little book. If I have done that, I'll insert that footage right now. So here's my Colin Gems little book of trees. Such a pocket-sized book, it's brilliant. Just a wee reminder of what the cones are like. It's quite a distinctive shape in the cone, really. So I found this coast redwood, and that was the cone I saw, and I thought, oh yes, there is no doubt in my mind, the shape of that is what's going on in there. So the Wellingtonia, which is on the next page, didn't really pay much attention to the leaves, or more specifically needles, but the bark says very similar to the coast redwood but brighter in young trees. And for the bark under the coast redwood, it says soft, spongy, flaky red brown. That's exactly what it was. It was very soft and spongy. So judging on my little book here, it was the Wellingtonia, which is cool. Learned something new. Whether I'll remember that name or not, I don't know. Or I could always try the oh jeez, I'm never 100% on how you even read the Latin names. I mean, that's got 1, 2, 3, it's got 4 vowels in a row. How do you make that sound? Sequoiadendron giganteum. I don't know. At least we were able to find it in my tiny little book. Don't know if you can hear that or see him or her. Is he coming? He might be. Look at this guy. Look at that face. Oh, yeah, he wants some garlic. I'm not risking him biting me. Want some more? Oh, that's good stuff that, isn't it? That's good stuff that. Yeah. Here's one that everybody knows and has been in the verges all the way along my walk, and I've not been able to pick any because it's been right next to the road. Now I can actually pick some. Stinging nettle. Absolutely ram-packed with nutrients. Not only is it super high in iron, it's really high in protein for plant, as far as plants are concerned. It's also got potassium in it and I think magnesium. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I'll put a list of just some of the fantastic stuff that is in stinging nettles on the screen for you now. There's a small patch here, but I know that nettles are abundant, so I have no problem picking these. Also, by picking them, they'll just throw up more plants. That's the great thing about them. So I'm going to crack on and pick a handful of these so that I can put them in my soup tonight, because soup is the only thing I can bloody eat right now because of my jaw. Alright guys, so my battery is pretty much done for. So me and my pal here are going to have to call it. We're going to walk back to the van now, a couple miles, and I'll catch you there. First thing I need to do is dishes. Boring as hell. But that does mean putting the fire on. So I'm going to show you just how good this birch bark is at getting a fire going. So I've got some charcoal logs in there already from when I shut the fire down. And I'm just going to put a little bundle of the bark in there, some sticks on top, light the bark, and boom, should have fire. And keeping in mind, I haven't dried this bark out. This is still damp straight off that tree. I'm just going to take a sheet of it about that big. You can also scrape against this bark and make a little pile of this really finer top bark, and it'll take a spark really easily from a flint and steel. But for my instance, I'm using it as a fire lighter, so I'm just going to scrunch it up, put it in there, then I've got some kindling. I'm going to try and make sure the match hits the bark here rather than the kindling, just to demonstrate how flammable the bark is really. Right on that corner. You can hear it crackling because of the resin in it. And away it goes. No problem making a fire with that stuff. And you can see that the kindling is caught, no problem at all. So with the fire on, I'm going to go get some water from the loch and get my dishes done. Been in pain all day and it's been a while since I've had painkillers. I'm feeling pretty just worn out and exhausted, and I don't want to end this vlog on a low. So the wild garlic and the nettles, I'm going to stick them in a soup or a stew either tonight or tomorrow morning, but I'm not going to include it in the vlog. But I'm going to be eating nettles throughout the entire year, and I'm not done with the wild garlic yet, so there'll be plenty of that coming in vlogs. However, I have decided that I'm going to make a medicinal cup of soup. I'm going to use some of the turkey tail and the wild garlic, but I'm also going to add some chaga and some birch polypore that I already have in storage in my van. I simply boiled the mushrooms for about an hour until I had a broth, and then added my cup of soup. So this soup has got two ingredients that we foraged today. It's got the turkey tail and it's got the wild garlic. Going to let it sit for just a little bit and then we'll give it a taste test. There's no bitterness, and the garlic's made it smell amazing, which is good as well because the turkey tail and the birch polypore, they can smell a little bit, not bad, just a bit fungal. So the garlic has really kind of hidden that, which is nice. But, you know, genuinely can't complain. Pretty delicious. And it's good to get another meal in me, because my jaw still doesn't open. So at least I'm getting some medicine in, as well as some calories. I know it's been a bit of a random vlog, and it's just been a, hey, I'm back. Let's walk through the woods. But I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to get into more themed videos, you know, let's forage wild garlic, how to preserve wild garlic recipes. I mean, that's what you just talk about wild garlic, but that's just because the smell's in there, and I've really missed this stuff. But yeah, more themed videos. This was just, I just need to get in the woods. I just need to start and just being the woodland nomad. As me. Just being myself and seeing, you know, what I made of it on my own. And I've had a really nice day. And if there's anything in this video that you'd love to know more about, whether it's dandelions or nettles or, you know, some of the stuff that I wanted to find, didn't find, or didn't want to pick because it was near the roadside, drop it in the comments and I'll put it to the top of my list on things to forage. It's been good fun to get stuck back in, even though I'm in so much pain with my tooth. Hopefully I get it out soon. But I'll leave it at that and I'll catch you next time, guys. Thank you so much for watching.